All right, now it's time now to go to our next guests. Since we have multiple guests in the studio this morning, I'd like to first introduce and talk about, well, actually, we're talking about homeschooling, and Catholic homeschooling in particular is what I'd like to talk about today. And in the studio, I have someone who's familiar to me and maybe perhaps to some of our listeners and viewers out there who are joining us by live stream. Cindy Check is a longtime homeschooler. I'd like you to give a little bit about who you are and how long you've been homeschooling, and kind of introduce our other guests here today.
Okay. So my name is Cindy Check. I attend St. Peter and Paul Parish in Ottawa. We've been homeschooling for about 18 or 19 years. Didn't really intend to do it more than probably second grade was the original plan. And then God just kind of kept calling us to another year. So it blossomed into a way of life for us. So very excited to be here.
Okay. And so let me ask you, how about what made you make the decision to homeschool initially in the first place?
That's a great question, because at least for my reason, it's probably not what most people expect to hear. So I have a master's in education, and we lived in Toledo at the time. And I was pregnant and working at St. Joe's in Sylvania, wonderful Catholic school. And we were looking at paying for childcare. And every dime pretty much I made at the school would have paid for childcare. So that kind of got me in the stay-at-home mom world. And then as our son approached school age, I really missed education. And to me, it kind of seemed like the perfect teaching gig, because I could do whatever I wanted. I could go on any field trip I wanted to. I didn't really have to answer to people. I could do all the fun things that they taught me in my program. And I didn't have to worry about funding except for my own personal budget. So that's what got me started. A neighbor had talked about it, and I thought, that sounds really fun. So that's what got me started into homeschooling.
Okay. So who else do we have here in the studio to kind of talk about homeschooling?
So next to me is Darcy.
My name is Darcy Smith. My husband, Morgan, and I are from Findlay, Ohio. We are members of St. Michael the Archangel Parish. We have also been homeschooling for about 18 years since our oldest started school. And I guess to answer the same question, how did we get started? It was actually not something we had planned to do at all. I was even, I guess you could say, maybe a little anti-homeschooling. When I was in college, I had to do a debate on homeschooling, and I was given the pro side of it. And I will never forget, I attended Franciscan University, and I was so mad I was given the pro side. I thought, there is nothing positive to this. And years later, my friends, teammates still razzed me about that. But anyway, a couple of years before our oldest was about to start school, my husband and I were sitting watching TV, and he just kind of threw out, "Did you ever think of homeschooling?" Just out of the blue. I will never forget that moment. And I was eating ice cream, and I almost just like choked on my ice cream. I thought, no, I've never thought about it. And then that just kind of started a conversation, and we had probably a couple more years before he would start school. But in that time, we mentioned it a couple times. And then when it was time, we were like, all right, let's give it a try. And it was, for us, again, a year by year. We'll see how this goes, reevaluate every year, and we've been homeschooling ever since.
So it was it was not expected, but
No.
it's turned into a blessing that every year it's probably been not much of a question. Like, I'm going to do this, continue.
Absolutely. We have been fully on board with continuing every year.
Very good. All right. So now we're going to pass around to our next guest. We have 3 here in studio. And let me get the guest cam over here. There we go. There you are. You are?
Hello, Deacon Jeff. My name is Cheryl Westrick. My husband Richard and I are homeschoolers from, we live in the New Bavaria area, southern Henry County. And we are parishioners at St. Michael's Ukrainian Catholic Church, which is a Byzantine parish in Rossford, the Toledo area.
Okay.
We've been homeschooling for it's 20-some years, 22, 23 years. And like Darcy, and I think like Cindy, we did not make a commitment long term. It wasn't anything we ever wanted necessarily to, it wasn't the vision that maybe we had for our family. Of course, we didn't really plan on having 14 kids either, but God has blessed us. So he also has blessed us with each year being able to continue to homeschool. Our oldest went to school for a couple of years, had some learning disability issues, wasn't progressing as well as we had hoped for him, and we knew he was going to need some extra support. So my husband decided to sign me up for a homeschool online thing. That was back in the days, before Facebook and social media and stuff. That was like, we had the big dinosaur computers, and there were only a couple of places. There was a Catholic city with Bud McFarland ran it for a while. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that. They had a little chat room for homeschoolers, and so my husband signed me up for that. And then we just caught the bug. We give it a shot, and it's a blessing. I mean, if you like your kids, you will like being around them. It's not like, oh, I can't, you see some of the commercials on TV where they joke about, I can't wait for school to go back in session, and I know that it's just a joke, but if you genuinely like to be around your kids, homeschooling it's a beautiful option.
Were there, because I'd say that you're progressed to a point where some of your children are out of school, right? So has there ever been a time where you thought that you would not be able to give them everything that they needed to be able to be successful?
Absolutely. I know for us, we started and we thought we'd do K through 2. And then each year was another year, like everybody else. And then we got to 8th grade, and my husband was not on board when we first started homeschooling. He needed a little convincing. And so we did 5-year-old kindergarten just to see what we thought, because he could go as a 6-year-old if it didn't go well. And for us, the big cross in the roads was the end of 8th grade year, because by then it had become a family lifestyle. And nobody asks to see really your K through 8 records, for their future adult life. So when we got to our first going to be high schooler, my husband and I both have a sarcastic sense of humor, and we both said, okay, now we're really messing them up. Are we going to do this? Because we're really messing them up for real. And joking, but also a real fear, are they going to get into college? Are they going to have scholarship opportunities? Are they going to be able to find their path? Not having some of the school things that maybe the school offers to them. And that was, for our family, way harder than the kindergarten decision, was the high school decision, and whether or not we continued at that point. Because then we knew our kids also, their childhood really would be unlike most of their peers when they went to college, if they chose that route. So we had a lot of doubt at that point. And then in high school, I struggled with it, especially with our first.
So it sounds like, except for your son, there really wasn't any real public school experience for your children. The decision to do this, was it generated by the fact that you did not believe that the public education system could do as effective a job, or they would not provide the kind of, faith-based education that you thought you could provide?
Yeah, I would agree with that. For our family, we've had a sign hanging in our schoolroom. We have a den in our house that's our dedicated homeschool room, which you certainly don't need. You can do it at the kitchen table or where the couch. People prefer the couch, I think. But we've had a sign in our homeschool room for years. It says heaven, not Harvard. And that really is the motto of our homeschool. The schools can get them into Harvard, but we want them into heaven. And that's our goal. If they never go to Harvard, if they never go to Northwest State, if they never go to any secondary education option, that's okay. Heaven is our goal, and that's squarely where we lay our goals with our kids. We don't pressure them for college, although I've got 7 that are graduated. 3 of them are college graduates, and 4 of them are not currently. So we encourage them to do what God has led them to do, what God puts on their heart to do, and ultimately, rather you homeschool, rather you public school, rather you private school, I think that all parents would agree that that really is the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my answer is similar. I think academically, kind of to touch on, what Cindy had said, there were aspects academically that maybe I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to fulfill at home. A lot of little holes and pieces. And actually, the more I homeschooled in those early years, the more I worried I got a little bit, because in those early years, I would go to homeschool conferences and things, and you would see all of this new curriculum and new things out. And I thought, oh, I didn't teach that last year. Or that book is really great, and it has XYZ in it. And so maybe there was a little doubt that academically I wasn't going to fill the shoes of a traditional school. But in hindsight, we have. But on the other side of it, it's very similar to what Cheryl said. Just knowing that we could spend whatever amount of time in the day that we wanted to, we could stop and talk about anything we needed to talk about, maybe even, I say, God forbid, forego math for the day because we're going to spend some extra time talking about a certain topic in religion that came up, or something in the church or something. And just being around each other. We also have a big family of 11 kids, and so we're kind of our own little community in the house, and there are a lot of conversations that would take place and a lot of things that that I've just loved over the years. And I have told people that there have been a lot of really hard days. I'll never sugarcoat that, but I would redo it any day. And I also tell people, I think I know my children so much better than I ever would have had I sent them to traditional school. Just because even in that downtime during the day, whenever I know their tendencies. I know the things that they like to talk about. I mean, I'm with them all day long. And it's been great, and it's been a blessing. And, I don't know, maybe they disagree, but, but I think overall, things have been great. And the goal for heaven, not Harvard, has definitely been a good, motto to follow.
Right. Yeah. It leads me to a question then, when it comes to teaching. Do you teach to a particular state standard? When you talk about curriculums and things that you need to, I guess, fulfill. I don't know how that works with evaluating their progress through to some sort of standard. Is there one? Do you teach to one, or is it kind of up to you totally?
So when I first started homeschooling, the Ohio Department of Education has the standards lists on their website. So because we were looking at K first and second, we did look at the standards a lot. Printed them all off. I had a binder and everything. And the more that we made it a lifestyle, and I knew the kids would not be going into the school, the more I realized it doesn't matter if I teach. I mean, I know cursive is not on their list anymore. It's on mine. So my current sixth grader, we still haven't done her cursive. I don't know why. It just, life happens, and sometimes, but it's okay. She's going to learn cursive. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's not behind. She'll learn I want her to know how to read cursive, and that type of and be able to sign name and stuff like that. So as far as from the state of Ohio, no, there are not. There's not specific standards that you have to fulfill. High school is a little bit different. Depending on the route you want to take. It's not necessarily that the state of Ohio puts graduation requirements on you, but if your child has goals to go to trade school, to your college, for your college, those colleges have application standards that you want to make sure that you're meeting. So for myself, we do not enroll with any Catholic school online. So our diploma is our own. It is recognized in the state of Ohio, just like any other accredited school. But we make sure that all of our kids are college track minded. So that way they have all the options open to them if they want to go into the workforce, if they want to go to trade school, if they want to go to college. They follow a very similar track to the kids in the high school, but 4 years of history might not be the exact same history classes that they're really taking in the schools. Ours might be more focused on Catholic history, or something like that. But the state of Ohio, does not give us a set of curriculum objectives like the school receive. You're welcome to follow them if you want to, but it's not required or oversawn by anybody.
Okay. So a question that makes me think about is the resources. You know, you're going to need materials. You're going to need these resources. What options do you have in terms of resources, and is it and in terms of cost too? Because it's probably, when you think about paying tuition, right? How does that compare? Who wants to answer that particular one?
I don't know dollar amount necessarily how it would compare, because I've not really researched tuitions because I haven't had to. But in terms of what is out there, there's a whole host of options you have. So you can make up your own curriculum. You buy your own books and do whatever you want. You can do a little bit of both. You can kind of follow an online program and then also dabble in some of your own books. You can, and Cheryl can touch on this more, you can fully enroll in a program where they kind of oversee, they give you your material, like what you need to do and kind of the layout. You can even get transcripts and diplomas from these accredited programs. You can do, I had mentioned before, like there are things that are online. They're not necessarily accredited, but you can go through them and take online classes and all sorts. I mean, there's just kind of whatever you want to do, whatever your teaching style is, whatever your children's learning style is. You can do live online classes where the kids will actually sit in on a class, recorded classes. There's just a bunch of things. I've never enrolled my kids. I've always done, early on, I just put my own curriculum together based on books that I really like. Now I'm kind of set in what I have found that works for me and my kids. But as they get into high school, they start doing some more stuff online, not an accredited program, but something that just kind of gives them a guide and an outline for certain daily assignments for some of the subjects, and other ones, yes, and then other ones we do on our own. My kids in high school are very heavily involved in what's called, they take College Credit Plus courses. That is something that, oh goodness, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, the state of Ohio started to allow homeschool students to participate in not only extracurricular activities with public schools, but also in post-secondary credits. And so we've taken good advantage of that over the last several years. I have 3 that are currently in college, 1 that is going in the fall, and they will all be able to graduate. 1 is graduating now in a couple weeks, in 3 years, because of the College Credit Plus courses that they took. So a lot of their high school is heavily geared towards those. They take them at Owens Community College, but they can be taken at any college. So that is another option for, technically I guess it starts in 7th grade. My kids, it could start in 7th grade. Mine don't start till high school age, but that is another option for schooling, which we take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
In our family, we do whatever we want to do in K through 8. Then freshman year, we get a little more serious. And then our sophomore year, we fully enroll in Seton Home Study, which is a Catholic program. So we pay, I'll throw out a number. It's about $700 a year, but that does include all of your books. Those books are non-consumable for the most part. So the next time that you enroll a student in that level, they will subtract the cost of the books. So it actually gets cheaper. So as the time goes on, my original students were about $700 a year in Seton, but now we're into our 4th or 5th student that's in high school going through Seton. And now it might cost us $300 or $400 a year for, and then they take their tests and we send them in. They're graded by the Seton graders and the teachers, and they've got their own guidance counselors and everything there. So there's several different tracks. If you want to go to a college, you can go on the IP or the fast track towards college, the higher credits. Okay. They're weighted, or you can just get a general diploma. Either way, it is an accredited diploma. We have found for our family personally that it's a lot easier to enroll in college with that. Some colleges, let me say that. Not all colleges. Most colleges are fine with your homeschool diploma. We did run into one that was an issue. So the accredited diploma is just a lot. It's the transcript is just really easy to hand over, and so we've gone that route. And I also like that I have someone else making sure that the kids are pushing themselves and learning that mom's not always going to be there for you. So you have to be a little more self-directed at some point in your life. And my kids are nailing that. And that is in part because they're handed their year and they just have to manage their own time. So it's a very worthwhile way of going. It's not the only way to go, but it's the way that we've gone.
Sure.
Works well for our students.
Sure.
And in the younger grades, I just wanted to add, because when we talked about cost, we talked a lot more about high school. Like, especially, you can homeschool for free.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can
Right.
homeschool for free. Not that you can't homeschool high school for free. I'm sure you can. It's just really hard to get. I mean, like, there's dissection kits, and there's bigger books, just or enrollment or whatever. But yeah, K through 8, you definitely can. There's so many resources out there. So when you ask the question about curriculum,
Yeah.
We all kind of chuckled, because that's kind of like asking an accountant, like, so how do you do your books? It's a huge question. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this, it's almost endless out there. So, but if someone is interested, you really can do it for minimal cost or no cost. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah. Great. We're talking to a group of homeschooling moms here, talking about Catholic homeschooling. And we'll continue with the interview here in a second. But I want to remind everybody that right now we're asking for your support to keep Catholic radio going and growing. So call 888-287-0655. That's 888-287-0655. We have volunteers in the office ready to take your phone call, take your pledges. You can also go online to holyfamilyradio.fm, holyfamilyradio.fm. You make your pledge or donation there. So one of the questions that I kind of think about when I think about homeschooling is, and it's kind of a loaded question in a sense, is because we don't all have typical days, do we? But what is a typical day like in terms of running your homeschool?
Well, you're looking at me, so I guess I'll start that off. I usually get up first. I drink my pot of coffee, and then I'm ready to roll. So I do school with my younger kids, my 3 elementary age kids. I do school with them every day of the week. We do our phonics, our math, history, science, social studies. I have 3 middle school type age kids, and those guys I grade once a week with them, and I reassign them once a week. So on Tuesdays, they come into the schoolroom. We'll spend a couple of hours going over what they did the last week, grade our papers all together. And I would say they're not all in the same grade, but my motto here on that is, if you learn about Johnny Appleseed once in your lifetime, you've nailed it. So I don't care what grade you're actually in when you learn it. So we cycle through our history. We cycle through our social studies. Some kids will get it when they're in 3rd grade. Some will get them when they're 6th grade, but they will get it all before they get to high school. So the middle kids have once a week where they're in the schoolroom. And my high schoolers, they're enrolled in Seton. So they're usually at the kitchen table, the couch, wherever. Usually at the kitchen table, they have quite a bit to spread out. So
Right.
they're kind of on their own. I get together with them once or twice a quarter to go over the parent graded stuff and to get their things ready to go into Seton. And that's really as much as it is.
Okay.
That's a day for us. We start out about 8 o'clock in the morning. By 11:30, we're putting leftovers in the oven, have lunch. And if it's a good day or a bad day, depending on who you are, we may go back to school after lunch, depending on where we're at on that. So,
Yeah.
And that's just really typical for us, day after day after day.
Okay.
Our day starts same thing. I get up. About 5 o'clock in the morning, but that's as I do some stuff in the morning before I exercise, and I go to mass 6:45 in the morning. Come back. By the time I get home, the kids should be up and moving around and doing their stuff. The ultimate goal is 8 o'clock. We're all seated on the couch, breakfast eaten, everything done. 8 o'clock, we pray family rosary. We've done this for years in the morning. It's not always perfect. Sometimes kids are falling asleep because they're still tired. But my husband has been able to do that with us because he wasn't going to work. Well, we used to do it a little bit earlier before he left, and then his start time got pushed back a little bit. So up until just recently, he's been able to do that with us every morning, which has been great time with Dad. And then Dad leaves, and I finish. I do a couple stuff. We'll do like readings of the day, saint of the day, things like that with everybody, big kids too. Then little by little, they get dismissed to go start their stuff. The younger ones stay with me. We do a couple of other little religion-based things. But by 9 o'clock, we get started with bookwork. Similar to Cheryl, I'm with the younger kids, 5th, 6th grade down, doing whatever workbooks they might have, their math, their science, social studies, spelling, writing, things like that. My middle school kids have an online guide that they use that has a breakdown for them, a subject by subject. And so they do their work, and then they bring it to me to get checked, whatever needs to get checked. And then the high schoolers, like I mentioned before, they do a lot of Owen stuff. So they're either gone at class because they'll either go in person or they'll do it online. If they do it online, they'll disappear somewhere in the house to have some quiet time and get that done throughout the morning. Similar to Cheryl's high schoolers, they're on their own. I don't keep many tabs on them. Every once in a while, I'll just kind of say, how are you doing? I can log into their college account and see their grades. But they're pretty much on their own. And then the younger ones, we're done by lunch. And we eat lunch and, like Cheryl said, maybe we'll go back to school after. If you've been goofing off most of the morning and haven't gotten your stuff done, then you have to go back to school afterwards. But that's in their hands, and they can be done by lunchtime. And that's pretty much it. And then I'll touch back on this later, but after lunch, my kids are involved in public school activities. So then they kind of feed out to the different things that they do. And I can talk more about that later if you want.
Okay. How about you, Cindy?
Oh, I should have thought about this. Okay, because I'm the one that probably going to make most people uncomfortable. We're more relaxed homeschoolers. We don't really have a set schedule. We never have. Every time I try it, it drives me batty, and I am a grouchy person, and everybody's unhappy. So we do not. I can't give you an answer like that, which is you asked earlier about causing doubts and things like that. So as a person who doesn't do things that way, it can kind of cause doubts, in that sort of thing. But I can tell you more like what the types of things the kids are involved in, rather than because a schedule it just has never really fit for us, or I do really good for 3 days and then we peter out. So the older I get, the more I try to just accept that, because I don't feel like I don't feel like God's calling us to stop homeschooling because we don't keep like a really good schedule. So we do some online classes through Homeschool Connections, which advertises on WJTA. We've done recorded, so the kids can go through the course list. They have like 900 courses, and they pick out things they're interested in. So we had a third grader. No, she was fourth grade. She did Spanish. She thought it was very fun. We had another son who did American Sign Language. Loved it so much. He's taken 2 classes at Owens Community College, ASL 1 and 2, and he wants to do 3 and 4. He's going to be a senior, and he's actually considering it as a future job to do interpreting for people. So yeah, I mean, they have their, their reading books, and we do math. We do teaching textbooks, which is a fantastic program. We really like it. And that really kind of handles it for us. So for us, our typical day is we do our must-do school things. And then there's a lot of free time for what are you interested in. Their bedrooms are a wreck, because they're interested in things, and they do things. And get involved in things outside of the house too. So, but we don't really have a set school day.
Cindy, though, I think that's the beauty of homeschooling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is that we can set the schedule, what works for our family.
Right.
And also have to stay understanding that God gave you the kids that he gave you.
Yes.
For you to parent.
Right.
And for you to educate them.
Right.
And you're nailing it, because that might not work for my kids, because
Right.
God did not give my kids to you.
Right.
And my kids need that schedule. They need the way that we do it after all these years. I'm confident in that.
Yes.
But we also know that, that schedule doesn't work for everyone. And you should not feel guilty about that at all, girl. You should stand up and you should
No,
be
it just,
proud
it's
of
funny because
that.
I'm like, oh man, this people listen,
You
it's
know?
like they're really, but, and I don't want to it's not always about, it's not about what your children achieve per se.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And they all have different levels of achievement. But if someone is out there wondering, okay, lady, you're making me super uncomfortable. What in the, do you really do school? Or that sort of thing. We have 2 kids in the workforce and we have 1 child at Franciscan University, with a lot of scholarships, and she's going to graduate with her nursing degree. So we want to focus more on what are they interested in? What do you want to, where do you want to take this? So,
Absolutely.
But yeah, I do admire the schedule because I know that it would also improve
But
some things.
you're doing really well. It's just incredible that we can do what works for our family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the testament to that is like your son, you said with the sign language.
Yeah.
If he had a regular schedule, would he have been able to discover that for himself? And what is his interest in sign language going to lead to? Who's he going to touch?
Right.
You don't know today what groundwork is being laid for his vocation and for the future that he might touch someone with that you don't even know.
Right.
So praise God.
Yeah, that's
Praise
our
God.
goal. Like you said, heaven, not Harvard. Our goal is I want our children to become who God wants them to be. And I don't want to get in the way of that because I have my expectations of what I want them to be, and where I want to see them going. So,
Yeah. So a question I have, and this is for any of you who want to take it, and that is, our kids are all different, right? They learn different ways. They have different abilities. And so I've had some of my kids really struggle with certain things that I find really easy. Okay. We're talking things like math and concepts. And I was not able to figure out how to keep my patience, with that and to really not understand how to make it work for them. I'm certain that you have issues like that too. How do you handle some of that? Because that to me that'd be really a real challenge.
yeah.
It can be a challenge, but when you're when you just accept that not everyone is exactly like you are, you adjust to that. And then when they're your kids, you love these kids and you want what's best for them. And I will give you an example with my kids. My oldest son was a struggler. He honestly never made it past pre-algebra even in high school. So we had to continually be like, okay, we're going to balance checkbooks and that's going to be your math credit this year because he could not make it through algebra. And I just have to realize God didn't give him that mind. But I'll tell you what he did give him, though. He went on to college. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He was in school for 3 years, still had no major. And then one day he said, I think I want to switch colleges. I'm going to become a diesel mechanic, which was completely different than what he had been doing. This kid who did not make it out of pre-algebra graduated summa cum laude from top of his class as a diesel technologist. Works a great job. He's a good, participating citizen. He's giving back to his community, and he is literally nailing life. But he never made it through algebra.
Yeah. Yep. That's important.
Similar, I don't have one post college about that, but my number 7 child, I was going through the teaching how to read. I'd done it 6 times before, kind of knew the drill. Everyone kind of learns at a different time, but for the most part, that by a certain age, all right, they'll get it. This one just was not. He was not. He was first grade, and I was doing end of the year testing with them. And he could hardly read the question and comprehend it enough to give me an answer. And I was getting frustrated at that particular moment. I had been throughout the school year just clearly knowing something was not right, wondering, okay, what have I stopped doing something? And then it just kind of clicked. Okay, something's different. So then I kind of outsourced. I looked for help. People who are a wonderful lady in our area who specializes in reading. And so it turns out he has dyslexia and is much further behind where any of my other children were at that same age with reading, but he has grown leaps and bounds, and I just had to learn. I had to adjust. So as a homeschool teacher, I'm learning myself, and that was a process where I had to go through and teach myself how to teach him because I didn't know how to do that. And so now I know. And so now if there's another child that comes along the way that I see that has similar issues, I know how to break it down in different ways rather than just, okay, this is how we're going to do it. But the beauty of homeschooling is that, and I know there are a lot of resources in schools, and I'm not going to put that down in any way, but he was not pigeonholed. He was not labeled and, okay, you're going to be in this group, the remedial side of class and kind of everything lumped in there. Great at math, great imagination, amazing creative writing is great. It's just the mechanics of the writing where he got stuck. And so he's been able to go at his grade level and not get kept back in any way, shape, or form because I have been able to provide him his own accommodations at home.
Yeah.
And it's worked really well. And again, I can go at his own pace. If we need to take the day off because he's struggling and really frustrated with something, we're going to take a break from reading for that day and we'll revisit it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, the beauty of homeschooling is that you can work around a lot of those frustrating moments where you just really don't know what to do.
Right.
And then you can figure it out together,
Right.
which they see that you're like humble enough to say, I don't know how to do this. And they're humble enough to say, I'm having a problem. And it's kind of nice in the end.
Yeah. I bet it is. It's one of those times where you have to realize your own humbleness and not being able to help them and trying to figure out what it is I have to change about myself in order to be able to do that and not, not to hate my child.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Homeschooling is all about humility.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am
Right?
sure.
It is.
I am
A lot of
sure.
it. Yeah.
One of the things that some folks kind of think about homeschooling is that they think about their kids socializing with other kids in the classrooms and being involved with some of the extracurricular activities that a lot of their friends or peers might have. What about that? What do you have to say about that?
So I'll say for our kids, they're involved in different groups. Our daughters have been in dance. Our boys have been in taekwondo for sports. They've been happy with that, so we didn't really branch out from there. We have a couple kids who have been involved in pro-life activity. Well, they've in youth group in the parish, so they meet kids that way. Our son, who loves the ASL, he's been volunteering at the food pantry in Ottawa since he was a freshman. They asked him to be a youth member of their board, and he's almost the only kid, but now he brings in like a small group of teens to help, and that's been fantastic. So with homeschooling, one thing that's I think is kind of nice benefit is they're not always around peers their same age, which is just kind of nice because the older kids help pull them up, and then when they're around younger kids, they help pull the younger ones up. As far as like hopefully maturity, and just things like that, and help each other see things in a different way. So there's so many opportunities to be involved in things. Our Catholic homeschool group did a co-op this year, which is a quick explanation would just be kind of like we get together once a week and we do school together for a few different classes. I taught comic book writing and I taught creative writing. We had science, and we did computers. We did start your own business. Those are for the older grades, and the younger grades did history and saints and things like that. But so they're around homeschoolers and non-homeschoolers. There's lots of opportunities.
Homeschooling, now that the whole socialization fear is just kind of silly anymore because there's so many things that they can do. Homeschooling wise, within homeschool circles, it's huge. Kind of what she was just talking about with homeschool groups. There's a Catholic homeschool group based out of St. Mike's in Findlay, and we get together for a monthly holy hour and playtime. Kids within the group will get together for play dates. There are field trips. There's different outings. all sorts of activities. Homeschool kids, just like regular school kids, are involved in, dance and other activities, karate, whatever. My kids in particular they're athletes. They wanted to get involved in sports. And so I have had, well, goodness, I don't know, eight of them now, 9 of them that have been involved in sports, 6 through the high school and junior high programs in town. And so they're a part of the regular sports team. They go, I drop them off at the end of the day, or they take themselves, and we've done cross country and track and wrestling. And for anybody out there who thinks, oh, well, either the fear of, I can't homeschool because my kid really wants to be involved in this sport and I don't want them to get noticed for the sport. That absolutely can happen. My second oldest was a state placer, Division I wrestling, his junior year, placed 7th in the state. He was supposed to place in the top 3 his senior year, but COVID knocked that out. That was unfortunate. But even with all that, he was recruited. He was contacted by Division I schools, but we decided that Division II was going to be the route for him. And he's on a college scholarship wrestling at a college, and really enjoying it. And that was as a homeschooler. So anybody who has an athlete out there who's considering, well, maybe I want to homeschool, but I don't want to mess with the sports side of it. In the state of Ohio, it can still be done very easily. The school system, Findlay, has been very, very receptive and open to homeschoolers. My son, the one who is a wrestler in college, was the first homeschooler that they ever had participate in sports, because that was the first year that they had allowed it when he was going into junior high. And so it was a little bit of a learning curve between, okay, well, what do we require from you paperwork-wise, and what do I give them? And it's been a great relationship, and they love the kids, and they're happy to have them on every time I bring a new one on. So they can be very, very involved, and other extracurriculars as well, that don't involve having to go to class during the school day. So any after-school activity they can take part of.
Okay. Yeah, we're running close to the end of our time here, so I have 2 questions. One is, how can people contact any of these local groups, to either get more information or consider joining? That's the first question. The other is, since you've worked with your kids for so long in their education, what tips can you offer parents who are to help their kids in their traditional school? Okay, because with working with them so often, you can help other parents perhaps figure out how to help their own kids in regular school. So first question is the local groups.
Well, one, there's a lot of local groups. So I would suggest, I guess, with specifically the Catholics, ask your priest, ask your deacon if they know any homeschoolers in your parish. Would be a good place to start, because most of us have networked somewhat with other homeschoolers over the years. So, if your priest can guide you towards a homeschool family, if that mom doesn't know, the dad might not know. I was just saying, but the mom will know. So go to the mom. Jesus always went to his mom, right?
That's right.
Okay.
It's biblical.
We can link that somehow. But yeah, I would say to try to find someone locally. There's also groups on Facebook that you could, you could hunt them up. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I know they're out there. But I would think that more personal contact with a homeschool family, which is how we all got together. Right. One mom contacted one mom, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And for advice for families in the schools, I guess I would just say, pray about it first of all. Pray for what you think the Lord is calling you as a parent to do with your children. As homeschoolers, I believe that homeschooling is the way to go for my family, but I also recognize that public school has its place. It has its value. Advocate for your kids if something isn't quite the way you need it to be. Advocate for them, love them through it. Reach out to people, to other parents. You do what we had to do. It's a crazy time that we live in, and parents know. That we have to be there for our kids to get them through this, because it's tough right now. Yeah. And take it to the Lord, the Blessed Sacrament, and he's not going to stray. He's not going to send you down the wrong path.
Wonderful. But you, Cindy?
So we are actually all involved in a Catholic group that's local to Defiance County and Putnam County. But you can't really find us without knowing a family that's already in it. And it's for privacy purposes because our group shares personal things. But if somebody is interested, I don't know if you're okay with this, Jeff, like they could contact the radio station.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't mind my information going out, and then I can talk to them about the local group. The Findlay St. Mike's group, are you guys online somewhere?
Yeah, I would be the contact person for that. Same kind of thing. We do have an online group, but you would need to contact me in order to get put into that. So I'm willing to share my information as well. That's for anybody in and around the Hancock County area. So anybody who'd be willing to make a drive to Findlay for an activity, you're welcome to be a part of the group. Yeah. And then I'll just say my last thing and you can finish in terms of advice for parents with kids in school. I would just say, just keep talking to your kids, talk to them. So you obviously have those hours of the day where they're going to be in school. Don't give up on those little conversations that you can have with them just because, okay, they're busy and they have this and they have that. Kind of treat the little bit amount of time that you may have with them almost as if that is your homeschool time. When they come home from school, don't necessarily accept how are you doing? Fine. Engage them in conversation because you don't have those rest of the hours in the day to talk to them and to see what's going on with them. Maybe risk being that, annoying mom or dad for a brief period of time. I guarantee, maybe not guarantee, I really don't think the kids will mind if you just pry a little bit harder, unless they've had a really, really bad day. But for the most part, it's just conversation. And I often find that after a couple finds, okay, if I keep asking, the conversation really just starts. They start talking and they'll start talking about something. And then I may end up in an hour-long conversation that I'm like, that I really didn't have time for it. but it's great. It's great. So, and that's what it is. Like the late night hours, take the time that you can with them when you can get it to just let them talk to you because you want to know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
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 So my advice, I don't know. Is it for people in school or just in general about homeschooling? I'm sorry.
For kids that are in traditional school.
Oh, okay.
For parents,
for their
try
parents.
to engage them.
Yeah. So my advice would be, if that is what God is calling to your family to, then be at peace with that. I don't believe that God calls every family to homeschooling and this lifestyle. I just don't. That's why we got started, is because the Holy Spirit he wouldn't shut up, so I had to try it. So and he doesn't call everybody to that. He calls all of our families to be a light to the world in some way, and we need good families in the public schools and in our Catholic schools, challenging them to be better and to to bring the gospel to those areas. So my advice would just be to, I guess along the same line, it's just every chance you can, when you're able, just to really try to connect with your kid. And they, the norm is, the norm or the stereotype is, the kids rely more and more on their friends, the older that they get. There is some truth to that, and there is good in that. They're starting to make their own path. Don't assume, though, that means you don't have a role. You have a bigger role than their friends. Whether they act that way or not, you really do. You are still very influential as they get older and as they go to college, and engage in that, even when it's hard. I know I've had times with my kids. We've talked about all the good things. We've had our struggles in our house, we've had our struggles, and trying to engage with kids when they're struggling. You need to still do that, regardless of where they're going to school or what. Our job is to try to show them the right path and to stand up for what's right and what's good, regardless of where they go to school. So Yeah, be present. Don't assume that, well, they're not going to listen to me, or, oh, they don't make time for me. Make time for them. Ask them, would you like to go? I don't know, if your girl likes to go shopping, would you like to go shopping? My boys love laser tag. I personally do love laser tag. It's really fun. But, it's like, it's, something fun that your kids enjoy doing. Would you like to do that with me? They might say no a few times. They might be testing you. Like, do you really mean it? Do you really want to do something with me? Show them that you do, and I think that will go a long way. I always think long goal, long term. So even if you're not getting the results you want right now, it's all about relationships. It's not really it's about relationships. Yes.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you. We've run past the top of the hour. See, it goes fast, doesn't it? It goes so fast. Everyone gets worried about coming on the radio and like, what are we going to talk about, right? Even though
We don't have.
I was going to say I wasn't worried.
yes, even though you might not have had any issues about that, there, especially when there's more than one person, right? So, but yeah, it's been a great conversation. I hope that some of our listeners and those who have been watching can take something away from this to either consider it or to look into it a bit further, and perhaps make that take that jump, so to speak, because our world is getting darker, and it's starting to really invade the family, breaking up the family, still doing a lot of disintegration. So robbing childhood innocence is one of the main things that I see. So with that, we need to go to break. You're listening to the Spring Spirit Drive here on Holy